There are a lot of big issues within the MarTech industry, but especially one I think that a number of us are talking about relate to cookies and the move to remove third-party cookies from the industry.
So why have we arrived at this moment? What was not working about the old regime? Why is Google and other large businesses moving in this direction?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think of a cookie as like my purse, right? Originally, it was meant to carry my wallet, my phone, maybe some business cards, but now it carries all sorts of things, folders, laptops, blah, blah, blah. And I think that, in essence, is what the cookie technology was and what the cookie technology has become. And so I think that's a big challenge, and it's probably been coming for some time, but then when you add on top of it a lot of the regulations such as GDPR and now CCPA, and you see a lot of other state-based regulations, there's more pressure from regulation and global views of how privacy is to a person that really has caused this to accelerate.
And why have regulators decided that the time to act is now? Why are we seeing this proliferation of privacy and data protection regulation? What harm are they trying to prevent?
Sure. I mean, certainly with Schrems and the ECJ, as well as Angela Merkel's cell phone being tapped into, I think that sort of was an accelerant to the overall view that the right of privacy, which exists for EU citizens, really needs to be protected end to end. And I think that really focused a lot of the regulation, certainly in Europe, on how regulations can preserve an individual's rights and what that means for an individual. And of course we see that having either pushback, depending on who you are, or having a dovetail effect in the US with the CCPA being yet another sectoral law that's being added to try to adjust how companies can be responsible about the way in which they collect data.
So views about what happens next, unsurprisingly, vary quite widely. How do you see this space unfolding over the next 2 to 3 years? What is going to replace the old regime?
It's a great question. I mean, I'm really looking for an industry solution, and I'm hoping that I, as well as many other leaders in the MarTech ecosystem, but really the broader system, can come to some sort of transparent and open framework. I think that's one of the considerations that has otherwise been missing from some of the dialogue that's been happening right now, because today we can say, look, the cookie technology is not a great forward-looking opportunity to collect data in a way that's useful for companies as well as transparent to the end consumer. So we can agree on that, but on top of that, the next steps are, well then what does that mean? And there's been a lot of emphasis, particularly on the regulatory side, for first-party cookies and having that ownership and relationship to the consumer. But as you know, the industry is so interdependent and interrelated, and to be able to get the big data insights, it really requires more ecosystem involvement. And I think, to be blunt, that's where a lot of companies are really concerned about, not just from the companies that don't otherwise have their own walled gardens, but actually sort of the overall evaluation of how trends happen, to not have that data to come in, and where that data alone in little bits and pieces really isn't valuable to anybody, really doesn't send the right signal or the right opportunities for companies to really tailor their products to the consumers.
So does every publisher now need an aggressive first-party data strategy? Do they need to be building up relationships with their users, their readers, their audiences to collect the data assets they need to survive and thrive in this new cookieless world?
It's a really great question, and I would say that's certainly where I'm seeing a lot of the trend. People are doubling down, and publishers in particular are doubling down on making sure that they have as many bases as possible to be able to collect first-party data. But the challenges, I really think, come from the insights and the analytics that happen from that, and whether or not they are first-party cookies, second-party data, third-party data. The insights really are a collective concept, and where there isn't a true technology today or a true standard that provides transparency across all companies, and I think the consequence of that is that we'll continue to spend a lot of investment in individual ways to try to address this when the problem is really an industry one that hopefully a transparent solution can.
So we've talked a bit about the sell side. How are agencies and their clients responding to these changes? Is there a growing sense that they're going to have to re-examine fundamentally the way they transact with the advertising ecosystem?
Yeah, I'm finding that area is being chilled right now. There's a little bit of a wait and see. There's also a little bit of concern as to what the next steps are and how to transition in a way that still is able to provide the opportunities in the marketplace without fewer transactions, et cetera. And so I do see that area right now just being kind of frozen, and I think that's why there needs to be more dialogue and some industry consensus building on what we can do overall to preserve the large body of data that we have.
So if we're in something of a standstill at the moment, if there's one thing you want to see the industry do this year, what is it? What's the priority as for you see it for an industry-wide action or endeavor?
If there's one solution that I'd like to see, it's an open source technological implementation that we can all run across the industry to be able to set those clear guidelines of what is and what is not permissible across the boundaries. Having that uniform taxonomy or having that consistency across the board, I think will permit all of us to reduce overall costs in the long run, provide the clarity and transparency that I think almost everybody in the industry wants to provide, and still be able to collect the meaningful data points on the big data scale as well as on the individual level to be able to action.